Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. I have got some very big announcements. First of all, I hope you're having a great week, enjoying this beautiful spring weather. May is the most beautiful month. You know, I write a lot, and I haven't put out an announcement about a new book in several months. Reason is I've been writing two consecutively, and they just happen to have gotten done at the same time. So, I am actually releasing two new books this week. The first is the medicinal weeds and grasses of the American Southeast. You know, I've been doing this series. I started with medicinal trees, then I did shrubs and woody vines, then I did ferns. This is weeds. These are the plants that people hate. You know, it could be something as simple as a dandelion or as fascinating as the daturas, your Jimson weed and bittersweet and such as that. Some of these are very powerful herbs, such as those. Some of them are very common, like plantain and such. This is, it took a long time to write this book. When I started out, I was thinking I was going to write on the weeds and wildflowers of the region. Well, that didn't work out so well. If I had done weeds and wildflowers, I would have ended up with over a 1,200-page book. As it stands, the weeds are I guess 380 some page book is the ebook, which is like, unformatted. In print form, I think it went to like 460 pages. So it's a big book. It's a big book full of information. I'll talk about it just a little bit more in a few minutes. The other book is one that's really been just a real passion of mine to write. It's one I've been wanting to write for a long time. And it's very different than what I've been writing. You know, I've written, I guess, total 11 books now, these two included. Nine of them are on herbal medicine. One is a cookbook. And now this one is a book about my conversion to Catholicism. And I know it's not going to appeal to my entire audience. This is primarily a podcast about herbal medicine. But, I started writing for the publication Missio Dei about a year ago. And it was kind of interesting. I had just kind of gotten back on Twitter and was talking with some people. And one of the guys that runs the publication got in touch and said, would you consider submitting an article? Now, it's a Catholic publication. And I said, hey, why not? I've never done anything like this before. So I became the fill-in guy for their daily gospel reflections. You know, every single day of the year at a Catholic Mass, there is a reading from the Old Testament, a psalm, and basically two readings from the New Testament. And that was basically what, dictates what the homily is going to be about, dictates what the day is about. And the entire Bible is read through from cover to cover in about a 3-year cycle. So every day, Missio Dei sends out today's gospel reflection. And we use the daily mass readings and write, kind of what they mean to us. It's basically like a devotional. I mean, most Protestants use devotionals. This is the same kind of thing. Well, I became the fill-in guy. Whenever somebody can't do it, I step up and do it. And it's good training working in journalism to learn how to write an article on a moment's notice, basically. And it's been really well received. And I've become friends with a lot of these folks. It's not entirely a new subject for me. My book on the history of Christian herbal medicine has me digging into, like St. Hildegard von Bingen and all these old herbalists, uh, the Benedictine order, and all the hospitals that were entirely where they used herbal medicine entirely, which were founded throughout Europe, which essentially Christianized Europe by providing free health care to everybody, and that was herbal medicine. So I got touched a lot on that, in my book on Christian herbal medicine, the history of it. Um, and of course, a lot on Protestant England and all that, and the New World and such as well. But if you're going to get into the history of herbal medicine, you got about 2,000 years there, where it really was the domain of monks and nuns as practiced in professional medicine in hospitals. And then, of course, I got a lot into well, in the first book I did with Jolanta, the herbs and weeds of Father Johann Kunzel. Father Kunzel was a Swiss priest. And so it's got a very religious connotation to it. So it wasn't entirely foreign to me for me to do this. In fact, before before I actually did convert to Catholicism, I worked as a Methodist youth minister for a time. So I read the Bible cover to cover through every year. Of course, I've missed a couple of years due to circumstances, but that's on average. I read a lot of the writings of the early church, the first couple hundred years of Christian writing, and I'm not a theologian. I don't have a degree in divinity or anything. I had considered becoming a minister. Actually, I was a student at a major Southern Baptist university when researching Christian doctrine, the development of Christian doctrine, going back to the writings of the early church. It's actually what led me to become Catholic. So, major upheaval in my life, major upheaval. I was absolutely ostracized at the school when it came out. People wouldn't speak to me, and I was basically asked to leave. And the head of the disciplinary committee at the school actually came up to me and said, "We think you ought to leave our school." And I mean, I wasn't doing anything. I had just was following a different path, what I believe the Holy Spirit was telling me to do. And it's been interesting. A lot of I can't pronounce that word all of a sudden. A lot of conflict with friends and family, and uh, yeah, it's been a difficult path, but it's also been the best thing I've ever done, and it's made all the difference in my life, in all honesty. And if you're interested in it, and like I said, I know a lot of my audience is just interested in herbal medicine. They're like, shut up and get on with the show. We want to hear about the book on the herbal weeds. I got you. A lot of my audience is Protestant and may have no interest whatsoever in why I became Catholic. That's fine. I respect you, and we're not going to argue about that. Um, you know, J- Jesus said, what you have to do is love God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. I don't get into a lot of I don't attack other people's denominations. I'll put it that way. I don't attack other people's religions. Unfortunately, a lot of people do attack mine. I live in an area that is, predominantly Seventh-day Adventist, Church of God, Southern Baptist, Jehovah's Witness, etc. And, missionaries or so, whatever they're called, will show up at your door, knock on your door. The Jehovah's Witnesses will come calling. Or I'll be walking through the grocery store and somebody will come hand me a Seventh-day Adventist pamphlet saying that all Catholics worship Satan or go into hell because we go to church on Sunday. It's can be a little odd, little tough. I mean, I often have to be ready to defend my faith very unexpectedly. I mean, I'll be at the post office, I'll be just chatting with a friend, and they'll say, "Why do Catholics believe this? Why do they do that?" And so I had to learn to defend my faith and to come up with biblically based reasons. And what you'll find in this book, it's called Confirmation and Autobiography of Faith. is, first of all, it's a tribute to William F. Buckley Jr., who was a big inspiration early in my life. He wrote a book called An Autobiography of Faith, so I just kind of picked up on that, and I give a little dedication to him at the beginning of the book and other people that were very influential in my life. And but the first half of the book is essentially my autobiography, as it in relation to religion. I tell about my mother and how I grew up, my grandparents, their strong faith, their love of country gospel music. I talk about growing up, in the southeastern part of North Carolina, which was very dominated by the Ku Klux Klan and the Masonic Order. There were billboards that said the Ku Klux Klan and the Democratic Party of North Carolina welcome you to our state. Remember to obey our laws. It was actually illegal to be, essentially illegal to be Catholic in North Carolina until just before the Civil War. Catholics were not allowed to vote or own property. In order to do so, you had to sign an oath, essentially renouncing Catholicism. Predominant religion or denominations, I guess I should say here, at that point were Presbyterian and Anglican because of the Scots, Irish, and English presence. And the first Catholic Church was actually founded right up around the Virginia line near the coast. And Sherman's troops came in and burned it. And, they missed one, the second Catholic Church. I think they missed that one. But see, Sherman's troops had a deal. They were mostly members of the Masonic Order as well, and they would not burn Presbyterian or Anglican churches for the most part. In fact, when they got down to Maxton, North Carolina, there was a Presbyterian school there, a women's college, and the generals contacted each other and said nobody messes with this school and the girls, and they marched around it and burned Rockingham and burned, everything around it. But it was an agreement between Freemasons. So really kind of difficult area to grow up. I was taught nothing about Catholicism, so for me it was a real interesting journey to learn, and that study, that learning, is culminated in this book. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Like I said, a lot of my listeners now to the Herbal Podcast are actually Catholic because of my working through Missio Dei. A lot are not Catholic. And if you just want to know who I am and why I believe what I do, maybe buy that book. If you have no interest in it, hey, it doesn't offend me. Okay? So both titles are up on Amazon. Both titles are available directly from me. If you want to buy the ebook directly from me, it's $9.99, and I send you a PDF through email, and you can contact me anytime from there on out because you now have my personal email address. If you have a Kindle device or something, Amazon has it. If you have other devices, they can set you up, or Smashwords can set you up. Or if you want a print copy, you really do have to go to Amazon.com. Unfortunately, Amazon is really the only game in town for on-demand printing. If I had taken a 400 and whatever 60-page book on weeds to any other printer, they would have thought I was insane, and they would have priced it much higher than Amazon does. I know, the print book on the weeds is going to be like $21.99 on Amazon. That's a lot of money, I understand, but anybody or anywhere else, it would have been a lot more, honestly. The Autobiography of Faith, that's only priced, I think, at $19.99. All the ebooks are $9.99 though, so if you want to save a little money. And now I'm going to tell you another thing. This is the other big announcement for the week. I can actually save you a lot of money on my books. Okay. So this is kind of a cool idea, and it's still working its way out. All along, I said if I did a Substack newsletter, I wanted it to be free. My goal is to provide herbal medicine to everyone so you can practice kitchen medicine, so you can take care of yourself and your family at home. I kind of believe that's like a mission of mine. So I put out a ton of free information. It costs nothing to listen to my podcast. Yeah, they run ads on it. That basically covers the cost of hosting the podcast. It's not really a moneymaker, let's put it that way. And it's free to anybody who wants to listen. It costs nothing to go to my blog, SouthernAppalachianHerbs.blogspot.com or JudsonCarroll.com, and read my articles. I do free herbal classes on Rumble. I probably give away more free information than anybody. I mean, 2 podcasts a week, um, through Southern Appalachian Herbs, and one through the Prepper Broadcasting Network, an article a week, free classes, and I'm available on so many platforms just to talk with, and you can ask me questions, and the Grow Network, I do a ton of work there. It's all for free, okay? And the way I get compensated is when I sell books. Well, so many people have said, I can't buy all your books, or I have a few of your books. I have one or two of your books, but I really appreciate what you're doing, and I want to support what you're doing. I mean, you talk about being humbled. I mean, when someone tells me that, they want to support my work, it's huge, really huge. So, Substack is how I send out my newsletter. You go to judsoncarroll.com, enter your email address, and I send you free newsletters. They have an option of free subscriptions or paid subscriptions. Until a couple of days ago, I always had it set to free subscriptions because I want my newsletter to be free to everyone, and it will remain free to everyone. But by putting in the option of paying for a subscription, you can support my work if that's what you want to do. You can click $8 a month, and you support my work with $8. In return, what am I going to do? I'm going to send you one of those 2 new ebooks. Yeah, instead of paying $9.99 for a PDF from me, you click on a monthly subscription, $8, and send me an email and tell me which book you want, and I'll send it to you. So I just saved you $2, and you can support my work that way. If you want to pay for a year up front, they give you a discount. So instead of $8 a month, it's $80 for the year. You do that, I'll send you all my books as PDFs. All of them. 11 books. So for $80, you will get, $110 worth of books. And every time I put out a new book, I'll send you a copy. So long as, the subscription continues. If they actually have a founding member level, which is like if you really believe in what I'm doing and you wanted to send me I think it's like $250, you become a lifetime subscriber. You get all my books as PDFs, and tell me what book you like in particular, and I will send you a signed autographed paperback. So, see, I'm actually saving you money if you want my books, and it will really help me because it gives me an idea. I can look, okay, monthly, I kind of know this amount of money's coming in. But I'm going to go even a little bit more. For all my subscribers, I am going to give you a deep discount on all the herbs that I either grow or wildcraft, gather from the wild, and dry for sale each year. I mean, basically just enough to cover costs. So if you subscribe at any level, free books and deep discounts on herbs, and I'm probably going to come up with some other little perks too, just to say thank you. When I teach classes or do herb walks, subscribers will get a discount. That's a possibility. That's something I'm looking into. Got to figure out how to do that kind of equitably across the board, but something I'm thinking about. I carve a lot of things. I would like to give my subscribers a discount on some of my carvings if they would like to have them. All that's going to kind of come to fruition, and I may not be able to do it all, obviously, but if you want to support my work, that's the best way to do it. Of course, you can just buy my books if you want to buy my books, but if you subscribe to my Substack newsletter, I'm going to really make it worth your while. Really. Because, like I said, I want to really get the information in front of as many people as possible and teach people how to be self-reliant, especially in this day and time. Especially in this day and time. Now, I've got one final announcement. Along those lines, I have tried to be about as apolitical as possible in this Southern Appalachian Herbs podcast. I know a lot of you are going to say, that you're crazy. You say a lot of political stuff. I maybe let slip out about 2% of what's going through my mind on politics and culture and world events when I'm doing this podcast. I really self-censor quite a bit. I do not want someone to be, I don't want someone to be so turned off by my politics or my views on culture um, that they can't learn herbal medicine, because I want it to be for everybody. So really, my political views, my views on culture and current events, the news of the day are shaped by about two, maybe three things. Okay. One is my Christian beliefs. Two is I've been studying economics for a long time, very long time. I have a deep knowledge of economics. Well, three is I'm just very, culturally conservative. I'm a natural, old Southern cultural conservative. I grew up on, William F. Buckley and Rush Limbaugh, but also in a family, that goes back in America to the late 1600s, American Revolution, War of 1812, Civil War, all that. I mean, my culture is very different from most Catholics, obviously, but all of it comes together to really, think it gives me a lot of common sense. Basically, um, if you listened to Rush when he was on, if you listen to Bongino or Clay and Buck now, if you're upset that Tucker Carlson got fired from Fox, if you listen to Steve Bannon's War Room, okay, you're probably going to really enjoy this. But it's not going to all be politics. It's also going to be religion. I have decided, in conjunction with releasing this new book on my conversion to Catholicism, to start a second, I guess actually a third podcast, but this is the second one I actually own. The Herbal Medicine for Preppers goes through Prepper Broadcast. This is going to be called The Uncensored Catholic. As, as you might guess, coming from an old Southern family, I don't think or talk like most of your Catholic commentators. I tend to be very blunt, and I tend to be very outspoken. And I don't need to give you a 200-page reference from a book written by a saint in 400 AD to make a point. I just say I think this is what's going on, and this is right and wrong, and I don't pull any punches. Uh, you know, I, you know that from my show. You know when I speak out against an issue, I can be pretty darn blunt. I'm going to do the one thing in this podcast, and I think it'll be appreciated by Protestants as well as Catholics. Okay, you don't think if you're not Catholic you can't listen to this, because, like I said, if you listen to Steve Bannon every day, like I do, well, he's Catholic, and he's Catholic, but he's probably got a bigger Protestant audience than he does a Catholic audience. And that's, I think, probably how mine's going to end up as well. But it's not going to be entirely about politics. It's going to be a show where we talk about things they say you can't talk about these days. That's why I call it the Uncensored Catholic. It's going to be talking about religion, politics, and culture. I'm going to talk about biblical topics. I'm going to talk about religious topics. I'm going to talk about, doctrine and a Christian worldview. I'm going to talk about politics, and I'm going to talk about current events. I don't think uncensored means I'm going to be, using obscenities or anything. No, you know me, I don't really cuss. It's going to be just like this. If you're comfortable with this show, you'll be comfortable with that show. I'm going to have a lot of interviews, hopefully, with various political and religious writers and thinkers. My goal is to keep this like 70% religion and 30% politics and culture. If there's a big controversy going on, it may be all politics one day, but we'll still get in there some biblical passages and, the gospel reflections, like I was talking about earlier. I want to engender through this podcast a strong Christian culture. Our society is so at odds with everything Christian these days. I mean, our country, America, and most of the Western world is literally just going to hell in a handbasket. I mean, it is just spinning out of control at a faster pace, at a more dramatic and worse level than I've seen in my entire life. And as a student of history, I've read a great deal of history. This is really pretty unique for America and Canada and etc. Uh, for the rest of the world, it's happened before, and it usually can be pretty rough, pretty rough. What we're experiencing now is really very much akin to what was going on right before the French Revolution, right before the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, uh, right before the Communist Revolution in China, or the Nazi takeover of Germany. I can go down the list. What was the result of that? Well, 200 million people dead, you know, and horrible violence, two world wars, and continuing essentially conflicts and Cold War with um, certain nations like China. I mean, China says they're at war with the United States. I don't think the United States has yet admitted, has even realized the problem. You know, still in conflicts with Cuba, and now, things are getting bad. And I want to give people a solid foundation to hold on to and let you know you're not alone. Let you know there are other people out there that think and believe like you do. And like I said, even if you're not Christian, if you don't want to live in an insane world, if you just want to have a world that was kind of like it was, God, I don't know, when we were kids growing up. I mean, what? I grew up in, the 80s and the 90s, and things were not great. They weren't like the 50s or something, right? But um, we didn't have we didn't have half of what's going on now. We didn't have the dangers of transhumanism. We didn't have, yeah, there were economic disruptions. There was the recession of the 90s. There was a recession coming out of the late 70s and into the early 80s. But we're seeing economic indicators that could cause chaos like we've never encountered since at least the Great Depression. I mean, we didn't have COVID lockdowns and and vaccine mandates, and I mean, transgendered all this, and sure, there were a few school shootings in the 90s. It's become so frequent now, and the violence in the cities is at a higher rate than it's really ever been in most of the major cities. Things are just spinning out of control. Suicide rates are up. I mean, fentanyl deaths of like over 100,000 a year. Tens of millions of illegal immigrants streaming in, and nobody knows who they are, where they're going, and the pressures that's going to put on the economy and the society that's trying to hold everything together. You know, we we saw empty shelves and madness during the COVID lockdowns. That could happen again any day and be even worse. I mean, I've emphasized it so many times about take care of yourself, take care of your family, learn to be more independent, grow your own food, learn to do your own medicine at home so you're not dependent on the systems. That is, also important. But what's also important is knowing that there is a shared ideology among like-minded people. And I hope we can be very ecumenical with this. But again, I don't hide who I am. That's why I call myself the uncensored Catholic. If you're just like really anti-Catholic, it may not be the show for you. If you're open-minded, I think you're going to find a lot of things you can agree with. And, sometimes when you disagree with me, send me an email and, we can discuss it if it's a, reasonable complaint, obviously. And so I think this is going to be pretty cool. I'll send out the link to my Substack subscribers probably Tuesday or Wednesday. I'm also doing this one through Spreaker, so it should be on all platforms. Anywhere you see my Southern Appalachian Herbs podcast, you should be able to find my Uncensored Catholic podcast, or you can go directly to Spreaker.com and just click on Southern Appalachian Herbs, and it should pull up. They should both pull up at the same time. So I know it's going to be a little bumpy getting all this rolled out, and I'll try to update you as we go. But this podcast specifically is going to continue to be centered on herbal medicine. I'm going to continue to write many more books on herbal medicine. I will continue to send out articles on herbal medicine, and I will continue to send out my Substack newsletter on herbal medicine. And like I said, this is what I do for a living. And if you could support me by either buying my books, going to Amazon today or directly to me and buying either a hard copy or an ebook, that helps, and it gives you that reference that you'll have forever. If you would like to support me by subscribing to my Substack newsletter, I'm going to save you some money on those books, and it just kind of helps me to have a more stable income source. I mean, I'll be able to look at it and say, well, I've got this many subscribers, and I know what I can expect coming in next month. I think anybody can understand why that is a nice thing for a self-employed person. So back to the new book, Weeds. This is the Weeds and Grasses of the American Southeast. Okay. As I've said so many times, my region is so diverse that these plants will probably appear just about everywhere in North America. Basically all temperate areas. Some of them are hardy enough to go like way up into Alaska, and some of them can handle enough heat to be growing down in South Texas and Mexico. So weeds are weeds because they grow without any human care. Think about that. A lot of well, I tell you what, I'll just read my introduction real quick because it was actually quite short. I'll tell you exactly what this book's about. It was only like 3 paragraphs. So many plants grow wild in our remarkably diverse region that it can be hard to differentiate between what is a weed and a wildflower. Originally, I had intended to include both weeds and wildflowers in this volume, along with grasses, but that would have resulted in a book that was more than 1,200 pages long. I finally decided to only include those plants officially designated as weeds, including a few grasses, by the regional universities. Not that they are experts. After all, what decides a weed? Some plants listed as weeds are native, others are non-native. Some are labeled noxious, as if that really means anything. Those so labeled are considered undesirable by the experts. Essentially, a weed is any herbaceous plant that grows without human assistance. Or to put it another way, it is a plant that is growing where somebody doesn't want it. It's any plant growing where someone doesn't want it. If we plant a bed of lettuce and we find chickweed growing in the lettuce, chickweed would be considered a weed. If we grow chickweed to include in our salads, it's not a weed. Same plant, 2 different definitions, just depending on the desire of the grower, I guess you would say. And I'm obviously not reading this verbatim. I'm kind of reflecting on it as I go. If we grow a lawn of ornamental grass and find a dandelion, they're considered weeds. If we grow dandelions for food and medicine, they're not. So just as there is no truly native or invasive plant, as seeds have been spread throughout the world from place to place before the first human foot ever touched the earth, there are no true weeds. Many of the plants you will read about in this book are not only quite useful medicinally, but were brought to North America by European immigrants and very likely by Asian and perhaps Polynesian immigrants long before, and they were meant to be grown as food and medicine. What's nice about weeds is they often grow in poor soil and in conditions that cultivated vegetables and herbs could not survive. We do not have to till the soil, water, or mulch these plants. They're just there every year. We only have to take the time to learn about them, identify them, and harvest them. I believe firmly that God has provided these plants for our needs, and it is a very foolish man who will curse such gifts and douse them with dangerous chemicals. A pocketful of plantain leaves is worth far more than a manicured lawn. Our ancestors who gave us these weeds must surely dismay at our ignorance. Well, what plants did I consider weeds? A lot. I went very much off of the North Carolina State University database of plants and focused on the plants they consider to be weeds. There was a little crossover with a couple of my other books. For instance, like wisteria is considered a weed. So that's going to show up both in this book and my book on woody vines. Dandelions are going to be in this book and my Encyclopedia of Medicinal Bitter Herbs. But for the most part, these are plants that I've never written about before, probably 99% of them, and really plants that most people don't know are even medicinal or edible, and much less how to use them. These are really plants, for the most part, that have fallen out of favor and are just considered weeds. But the great thing is, if you look around, we're surrounded by weeds, right? Those weeds are going to pop up in, old fields and in your yard and on the edge of woods and wherever you go, because that's what weeds do. Weeds are hardy, and see, strong, hardy plants tend to have strongly medicinal properties. And I'll give you just a few examples. Let's see, this is basically alphabetical order. I will not read them all to you because, like I said, it's a very long book. Acalypha virginica, that's Virginia copperleaf. Acalia filipendula, that is a fern leaf yarrow that really very little specifically written about. It's a weedy yarrow. You'll probably be able to find it in your yard, and it can be used just like regular yarrow. Really good plant to know, because yarrow is good for everything from healing, stopping bleeding, healing wounds, diarrhea, menstrual bleeding, et cetera, et cetera. It can be used cold or hot. It can be used for fevers. It's a great herb. It's one of the essentials. Agapodium podagraria, that's bishop's goutweed. Really interesting herb, more known in British herbal medicine than in any other tradition, probably brought here by the English. Agrostemma gathago, corncockle. That was one of Dioscorides' favorite herbs. It's somewhat toxic, very powerful herb. Good to know. Of course, we have alliums. I love my alliums. I love my garlic and onions and all that. I love my ramps. We have several wild onions. You see them. They pop up in your yard. You learn to identify them, and you can use them. Remember, if it looks like an onion and smells like an onion, it's an onion. If it looks like an onion and doesn't smell like an onion, it's a potentially poisonous member of the lily family. So that's your rule of thumb when it comes to the alliums. Amaranth. Amaranth, you may know, is sort of a trendy grain these days. Well, it's actually in most places considered pigweed. It's a weed. People don't like it. It has amazing uses. It's one that was used in the ancient Middle East and such, and North Africa, and very much by South American and North American, Native Americans. Ambrosia artemisifolia, that's American ragweed. Yeah, I mean, I've talked many times how great it is for allergies. It's also a good bitter. Aphanes arvensis, field parsley or parsley peart. It's a false parsley. It's one of the very best herbs for bladder and kidney stones, urinary gravel as they used to call it. Of course, we got to get into burdock. Tons of information on burdock. Absolutely one of the most useful herbs, indispensable with dandelion and plantain, in my opinion, and chicory. Baccharis hamifolia, that's consumption weed. That's more of a Native American plant, very useful, very good for coughs and consumption, hence the name. Brassica nigra, that's black mustard. That's one of our wild mustards. Potent, very good wild edible. You can make the condiment mustard out of it. Also potent, very potent herbal medicine. Calistiga sepium, that's Appalachian false bindweed. That's a bindweed. It's sort of like a morning glory. Uh, Very interesting. It's a purgative, essentially, very strong, good for fevers, urinary tract diseases, etc. Um, Shepherd's purse, Capsella bursa pastoris. Uh, Really, probably the best herb for excessive menstrual bleeding. Shepherd's purse is really good, great wild edible, definitely worth knowing. And yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. I mean, you can find shepherd's purse, wild lettuce. It's another one that I cover in the book. Well, it has great pain relieving properties, good digestive bitter, good for the liver. Cardamom, that's another one. Bittercress. Um, let's see, centaurea, that's Barnaby's thistle or yellow knapweed. Cerastium glomerata, clammy chickweed. Chickweed, very much used in European herbal medicine, definitely brought here by settlers to be used as food and medicine and as chicken feed. Chelodium, that's greater celandine. Uh, yeah, Dioscorides wrote about it. Gerard wrote about it. I mean, I can go on and on about celandine. Chimpodium album. That's another. Maybe you might know as lamb's quarters. That's another native weed that was much used by Native Americans for food that for some reason we think of as a weed, and it's actually one of the very best wild spinach substitutes. I've seen it growing in parking lots. I mean, just it'll pop up just about anywhere. It doesn't necessarily mean you should harvest it from parking lots where oil and gasoline could drip, and but it's one I actually like to grow in the garden. But it has many medicinal properties written by Dioscorides, Miss Grieve. It has soothing properties. It's good for the digestion. Um, the seeds actually help get rid of intestinal worms. It's considered a sedative and a diuretic. So many uses for that plant in so many cultures. So many cultures. Of course, chicory. Chicory is another one of our excellent bitter herbs. It's another one I included in the Encyclopedia of Bitter Herbs. So it's a little bit of crossover between the other books. Plume thistle, cerisium, bull thistle. I got a whole chapter on the thistles, which are excellent herbs. Um, I have a really interesting chapter on conium. This is poison hemlock, and I tell you, absolutely don't use this plant. It's one of the most deadly and dangerous plants in existence. But it includes some very interesting historical information about how poison hemlock was actually used as herbal medicine, uh, really from the time of the ancient Greeks up to early America. Uh, very dangerous, but just fascinating to read about that one. Honestly, I would buy the book just for that because you're not going to find that information very often because it is so dangerous. So after warning people, don't use this herb, I then tell you about its historical use. So I think I did that in a fairly responsible way. Cynodon dactylon, this Bermuda grass. Everybody, there's so many grasses that people don't like, but uh, Bermuda grass has actually been used historically as a diuretic. It is considered to be alterative, which means it has sort of a tonic effect and actually an anabolic effect, believe it or not. It's Let's see, demulcent and emollient, which means it can be used softening for the skin. It can be used as a wound herb. So many things. Nutsedge, Cyperus esculentus, chuffa. Tiger nuts, you may know as tiger nuts, very good for digestion. Um, let's see, Dactylus glomerata, that's another grass. Um, Dacus carota, a wild carrot. Wild carrot. I explained how to tell the difference between wild carrot and poison hemlock. They actually look quite a bit alike. And wild carrot has been used medicinally quite a bit. Uh, it's been used for kidney stones and as an aphrodisiac and so many other things in between. Crabgrass, Digitaria. Believe it or not, crabgrass, everybody's probably most hated grass, has been used in the treatment of gonorrhea. Uh, yeah, it's actually been used in the treatment of cataracts. Um, we get to wild yam, Dioscoriae, a fascinating herb. So many uses for wild yam. If you only know it in as having once been used in birth control pills and now usually used in some PMS formulas, you'll be amazed everything wild yam does. That's really just sort of almost a side effect of the saponins. I mean, wild yam is like ridiculously useful, but it does have a hormonal effect as well. Eclipta prosperata, that's a false daisy. Um, it's more used in Chinese medicine. It's actually good for tinnitus or tinnitus, toothaches, all kinds of stuff. Okay, I can't name them all because I mean I'm already kind of running a little long here, but I'll just try to flip through some highlights. The epilobiums, the willow herbs, so good for prostate issues, among other things. Um, Origerons are another like a false daisy. It's one of the very best for like diarrhea, internal bleeding. It's very good for irritable bowel syndrome. Um, Get into a really interesting eupatorium. I'm saving the other eupatoriums, your bone set and your Joe Pye weed and all that, for the one on wildflowers. But there is a eupatorium called dog fennel. Not even going to. Let me tell you, some of the Native American uses for this one were pretty far out. Pretty far out from like mind control to sexual potency. I mean, really interesting history on this herb, plus some very legitimate, uh, herbal medicine. Anyway, um, well, gallium, cleavers, Glechova, which is ground ivy, and I'm just kind of skipping through it here. Heterohelix, that's English ivy. That's just your ivy that's used ornamentally. Once very much used in herbal medicine and still could be very useful. Hydrocotyle umbellata, hydrilla, lamium, Malva neglecta, that's one of the mallows. Um, Lonicera, Luigia. Okay, I'm doing too many Latin names here. I probably need to give you more of the common names. Um, let's see, Oxalis, which of course is your sorrels, and I put the docks in along with those. Um, Phytolacca americana, that's pokeweed. I think I have assembled probably here more information on poke, the use of poke as food and medicine than you'll ever find anywhere in one place. I mean, it's a very large chapter on poke. As you know, it's one of my favorite wild edibles. It's also one of my favorite medicinal herbs. It's very powerful and, of course, can be toxic if misused. Prunella self-heal. That's a member of the mint family. That's very good for wounds and fevers and colds. So many. Senecchio. Like I said, I got a big chapter on the solanums, which are include everything from Jimson weed to bittersweet to, I mean, the really strong daturas. That's again one I'm going to warn against using, but the historical information I put in there is fascinating, and I think this is probably the largest volume of information on those particular plants that there is in existence. Uh, wow, I found a native Stachy's. That's Stachy's floridana, and very interesting. Of course, we have to get into the dandelions and Tanacetum, tansy. Talk about a lot how tansy can certainly be toxic, but it's also been a popular culinary and medicinal herb for thousands of years. Thousands of years. We get into red clover, mullein, of course. The chapter on mullein is, I think, quite good. Veronica, the violets. Um, Xanthium. Xanthium was very interesting. So I don't even know. I've got probably, I'm not even going to give you a guess at how many different herbs I covered. Two, 300. And, there's some crossover. Like you might have like 6 or 7 varieties of one family. But, at least a couple hundred different plants. And several hundred pages. I think you're going to find this book to be absolutely indispensable. And I say that because it's sort of like my book on trees. These plants are already here. Yeah, you might want to plant some, you might want to cultivate some, but this is your medicine cabinet in your backyard. If you know these plants, all you need to do is get a good plant ID app on your phone or a couple of good field guides. I mean, I don't include photographs or illustrations. If I had, the book would have ended up being, 600 pages long and would have cost a fortune because the photograph paper costs so much more than just print on plain paper. And of course, that ink and everything. Uh, I want to make, obviously, I want to make this available for the average person. I want to make this available for somebody who's got 12 kids or a waitress at a Waffle House, who are usually the most fantastic people, by the way. I love Waffle House. We get into that another day. And, yeah, maybe I'll give you some of my recipes based on some of my favorite dishes at Waffle House. I mean, that was like literally my favorite place to go as a kid, a teenager, when I was traveling all the time. I get steak and eggs, a salad with blue cheese dressing, apple pie a la mode, and a couple cups of coffee, and I mean, I was set. But anyway, I want to make the book affordable, so that's why I have to do it that way. But you can get a good ID app on your phone, or you can get a couple of good field guides, and you can walk out in your backyard, and you should be able to find common plants, weedy plants, plants most people just totally disregard. And trust me, if you spot some in your neighbor's yard, you can ask them to go if they mind if you go pull their weeds. They will probably pay you to do it, or at least be very grateful. This is free medicine. If you use just a few of these plants for remedies, this book will pay for itself over and over and over. Okay, this is not these are not herbs you have to order from an herb company. These are not herbs you have to grow yourself in your garden, where you have to buy seeds or get transplants and cultivate them. These are already growing all around you for free. So to me, okay, it's a gold mine. I feel very comfortable at the price point of $21.99 to have this book on your shelf because, like I said, a couple of colds, couple of issues of like I don't know, whatever you name it, diarrhea, something more serious. You find a couple of these remedies, you go out in your backyard, pull up a plant and use it, and yeah, the book will pay for itself over and over and over. And if you subscribe to my Substack newsletter as a paid subscriber, I'll send it to you for free. So I think that's pretty generous actually, because I'm actually losing a little bit of money on the books. But you understand why I'm doing this. People say they want to support me, and it does give me that benefit of having a predictable revenue stream. So y'all, that's it. I mean, a lot of announcements, a lot to take in this week. I'll try to put the links to all the URLs in the show notes. And like I said, I hope you will enjoy the new podcast. I hope you'll sign up for that, start listening to it, sign up for the Substack newsletter that's associated with that if you're interested. And it's going to be pretty no holds barred. It's going to be, like I said, it's going to be clean. It's not going to be profane or anything, but I am going to tell people exactly what's on my mind and exactly what I think of what's going on in politics and culture. And it's going to have a goodly amount of Christian religious content as well. I think it's going to be really fun. And of course, it's very different than what I've been doing. So, a little support, a little feedback, of course, going to be appreciated on any new project like that. But anyway, y'all have a great week. Have an excellent week. Get out there, enjoy the beautiful wildflowers and the birds flying around in the sunshine, and start finding some nice herbs that are growing wild. Hey, if you get my book on the weeds and grasses, most of that stuff's out there in bloom already. So you would literally be able to use this book on day one. And I think, yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, it's taken me many years to learn what's represented in these books. And you're getting them like in the blink of an eye. And I think, what's really cool is to think someone who's taking in all this information, like whether it's you or, maybe you listen to my show, you buy my books, you read my articles, and you're telling it to your kids. Well, I know a lot about herbs. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 15. I've been doing this for 30 years. Imagine how much your kids are going to know. I mean, they may literally, the amount of information they'll have access to and the amount that they retain, I mean, it could save their lives. It could keep them from having to use doctors and pharmaceuticals. It could make them the most valuable person in their community, in their family. It could help them even live off the land if need be. And it certainly gives you that wonderful connection to nature. And, I always say, I mean, it actually says in the Bible, I can't pull up the quote from memory right now, but that, God is reflected in his creation. When we go out and we gather the herbs and we appreciate the beauty of the flowers. I mean, I think it was St. Paul that said, look on those things that are beautiful, look on those things that are good. it gives us a sense of peace, and it's really like a living prayer, really. But I think that's why people are drawn to nature, and well, I mean, I can't say enough. It's my passion. It's what I love. If I can't be outdoors, in the garden, in the woods, fishing, whatever, I'm absolutely miserable. I'm not a city person or a desk person. So I think I'm kind of giving you a way of life that's going to be helping you. I'm kind of helping you learn about a way of life that can be very enriching and very fulfilling. So, y'all have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.